Camp Fire, the deadliest wildfire in the U.S. in a century. Hello, everyone. I'm Arthel Neville. Welcome to a brand new hour inside America's News Headquarters.
Hello, Arthel. Hello, everyone. I'm Eric Shawn. 74 people so far have been killed in those wildfires in both parts of the state. 71 of those deaths are linked to that infamous, quote, Camp Fire in Butte County, just north of Sacramento. More than 1,000 of our fellow Americans, though, at this hour remain missing. They are still unaccounted for. And in the South, the Woolsey Fire damaged communities outside of Los Angeles, killing 3 people there. The president earlier today spoke about the devastation he witnessed.
We've never seen anything like this in California. We've never seen anything like this, Jerry. It's like total devastation. The men and women that are fighting this fire are incredible.
And Kevin Corke is live in Paradise, California, a town that totally destroyed by the Camp Fire. Kevin, what do we expect the president to do for the rest of the day? He's got a big, long day in California.
You're right on the money. A big, long day, obviously visiting here, as you pointed out, an area that has just been absolutely decimated by the fire. I have to tell you, Eric, I know you've covered many. Until you're actually here and you can look and you can see it and smell it, the pictures don't do it any justice. Now, next, the president is off to areas well to our south, also hit by devastating fires. And, of course, we'll continue our coverage as he makes his way across the Golden State. Now, earlier, he was here in the northern part of the state. In fact, he was right here in Paradise. A firsthand look at the devastation and a promise to do better.
We're going to have forests that are very safe because we can't go through this every year. We go through this, and we're going to have safe forests, and that's happening as we speak. We're going to work together with the federal government. No, state, local, and federal government. Federal government's going to work with the state and local, and we're going to help them with funding. And it's going to take a lot of funding.
The key factor there, as far as forest management is concerned, Eric, is you want to work with eco-experts to preserve the beauty here while also protecting our people. Eric?
Yeah, Kevin, he was touring with Governor Brown, Governor-elect Newsom, and Jody Jones, who's the mayor of Paradise. So how soon can the local and state officials there expect to get federal help to try to get them all back on their feet?
Well, disaster relief dollars move in right away, but I should point this out for the folks at home that don't know. While those grants are almost automatically kicked in, a lot of what you're going to see is resource management as well. We're talking about an influx of manpower and obviously the ability, Eric, to pick up some of the materials that it will take to continue to battle some of the ongoing problems that are happening here in the state. We're talking about vital assets to engage the fires that continue to wreck not just this part of the state where we are today, but also areas to our south. This has been a recurring problem, as you and I have talked about today. In fact, I can share this. Since 2000, California's had 198 federal disaster declarations. That's the most of any state in the country, and almost all of them, 177 out of 198, Eric, involve fires. Now, the president will continue to meet with first responders, the families who've been impacted, and others, and of course, we'll continue our coverage. But for now, back to you.
All right, Kevin. Thank you so much. Arthel.
And Kevin and Eric, the Camp Fire taking humanitarian toll in Northern California. Tens of thousands of people have been displaced, and more than 1,000 are relying on shelters like this one in a Walmart parking lot in the town of Chico. Joining me now is Cooper Thibault. He's a volunteer and resident of Chico. Cooper, thank you so much for being here with me and to talk to us. You live in Chico, California. You're currently in San Francisco, I understand, to get more supplies. First, I want to ask you, how is your home and how is your family?
Yeah, thank you so much for having me, Arthel. My family, fortunately, is completely fine. They were very briefly evacuated, and now our entire family is full force volunteering and trying to help other families. But the real victims, the people of Paradise, it's decimation like I've never seen in my life. Just yesterday, we saw a woman keeping her 11-day-old baby warm in the Walmart parking lot with a hairdryer. We met a woman in her 4th stage of chemo with two of her children with her in one of the shelters in Orville. She doesn't know if her other two children made it out. It's truly unparalleled devastation that is very difficult to understand if you're not actually there on the ground.
And even when you see it, it's almost hard to believe. Your mind and your eyes suddenly get a divorce because you can't believe what you're seeing. You know,
it is very hard. I've never seen anything like it. I mean, pictures of Katrina, I didn't do this justice. It's truly terrifying.
I understand you're there to collect supplies in San Francisco. What are you collecting? What do you need?
That's correct. Well, a company called Meathead Movers was kind enough to reach out to me and offer to fill up their fleet of trucks and bring supplies to Chico. So what we're collecting now are brand new clothes, things that keep you warm at night. It's about 25, 30 degrees there. Brand new rain jackets, brand new rain clothes, tents. People are living in a tent city right now all across the city of Chico. And then just unperishables like water, canned food, things like that. These people will be out of their homes for years.
Yeah, we're looking at pictures while we're speaking with you there in Chico, California, of a clothes rack set up outside where people are fishing through, trying to find something to wear because they literally left with just the clothes on their backs, and you had pets out there, people out there. You know, what was the name of the company you said? Meathead Movers?
Meathead Movers. So, and it should be known that they reached out on their own and they just want to help.
But if we are watching and we want to get something to the people in Chico and some of the other areas, how do we do that?
What you can do is give to the Wildfire Relief Fund. They will direct money to helping people rebuild their lives, get new employment if small businesses were burnt down. Paradise is all small business. There's not a Walmart, there's not a Target, there's not a Costco, and now it's all destroyed. Wow. You can give to the North Valley Leadership Fund. They're helping to rebuild Chico, and they're helping more immediately get people into temporary housing. And then I am happy to work with anyone to connect with families directly that need specific clothes, specific size clothes.
Okay, so you mentioned the Wildfire Relief Fund, and what was the second?
North Valley Leadership Fund.
So we just go to northvalleyleadershipfund.org?
NVLF.com.
NBLF. So what we're going to do, anyone who's watching us or listening to us, we'll put this information on our website. So, because I know there's so many people who want to help and they feel helpless, but here's a way straight from your mouth in terms of how they can help directly get much needed supplies to those who are displaced, homeless, frankly. So when you head back to Chico, what's your mission when you get back?
I mean, it's hard to say. Seeing these camps or these tent cities is devastating. It's hard to really have a starting off point. The goal right now is get people as comfortable as possible. That's hard because there's so many people sleeping on cots and on the ground. But it's getting people comfortable, helping them to make their next move. And really, in one word, it's just to survive. So many people out there are just trying to make it day by day, meal by meal, to live to the next day, to try and find their family, find their pets, get up to Paradise, see if they have anything left in the ashes. Mm-hmm. So they are just trying to survive, and we're trying to do whatever we can to help them do so.
And you know the nation is with you. And, you know, so many people want to help, people from, you know, probably all over the world. But right now we're talking about inside this country, Americans wanting to help fellow Americans. And before I go, I said we're going to put this information on our website, foxnews.com, which we will. But I want you to tell me again those websites you mentioned. And also, before you tell me, once we get to those websites, is there an obvious link or a clickable button where we can donate? And is there a list of what's needed, almost like a wedding registry?
So there is no registry. There are so many shelters in Chico right now that are all operating independently, which is great, but it does make it difficult to have one sole registry. So there aren't exact items that are needed. Really, the biggest thing is money to NVLF.org and then California Wildlife Relief Fund.org.
And when you say, give me that, spell out that acronym. N what? N as in Nancy?
NVLF.
Are you saying V as in victory?
North. Correct. L as in leadership, F as in fund.
.org. All right. Thank you. Again, we will put, producers will talk to you before you go, and we will put all of that information on our website. And we wish you nothing but the best, and our prayers are with you. And, you know, words really can't provide the solace that that y'all need out there in California. Cooper Thibault, thank you.
I appreciate that. Well, it's good to have your thoughts. Thank you.
It is so important to try and help. Meanwhile, in Florida, the bitter battle over the Senate seat there, well, it soon could be coming to an end. Election officials have until noon tomorrow to submit results from a hand recount of tens of thousands of ballots. Right now, Republican Governor Rick Scott holds a 12,000-vote lead over Democratic incumbent Senator Bill Nelson for a Nelson Senate seat. Peter Doocy live in Lauderhill, Florida, where the counting has been going on. Hi, Peter.
Eric, somebody here in Broward County misplaced 2,000 early ballots between Election Day and the recount. And Democratic lawyers are inside right now continuing to ask where those ballots could have possibly gone, while Republicans that I have spoken to are asking why it is that the supervisor of election, Brenda Snipes, would say this if the ballots never left the building.
The ballots are in the building. The ballots are in the buildings. Somebody must have put their stack in a tray where it didn't belong, and we didn't pick that up. So we continue to count. What we can do is go back and recount. The ballots are in this building. There would be nowhere else for them to be, but they are misfiled.
The hand recount helped Democrat Bill Nelson get 274 votes closer to Republican Rick Scott, but that's very short of the 12,000 plus deficit that he is trying to make up, a gap that also will not be closed by the 5,700 or so mail-in ballots that had mismatched signatures, and then voters were told about it. They had until about 11 minutes ago to get those fixed if they wanted them to be counted. Last night, a federal judge also ruled that thousands of ballots that didn't turn up in mailboxes until after the 7 p.m. Election Day deadline could not be counted despite a legal challenge by the Bill Nelson campaign. Most of the post-election day recount excitement has been fought in courtrooms, and the Rick Scott team says that's because they don't think Bill Nelson, they think that Bill Nelson knows that he cannot win without somehow changing or altering or making exceptions to election laws. They are also now accusing the Nelson team of just trying to change the Florida election law now in 2018 to make it easier or to benefit the Democratic side in the presidential election in 2020. Officials, though, right now inside going back through all those early ballots, hundreds of thousands of them, trying to figure out where the 2,000 missing ones might be. Eric?
Man, oh man, long process. All right, Peter, thank you. For more on this, let's bring in Nancy Ankrum. She's an editorial page editor for the Miami Herald. Great to see you, and it's just astounding. I mean, 2,000 votes. Dr. Snipes says that it's in the building somewhere. So what do you make of the fact that they can't find 2,000 votes, and that's just part of one of the many problems that they've had there in Broward County?
Well, that is really same old for the Broward County election supervisor. Unfortunately, we have been through this before in previous elections, and there is a laxness, there is a lack of discipline in that office that has been so long-lasting that it's amazing that she is still in office. Now, I will have to say that there are 2,000 in Broward alone, but there are statewide 8,000 votes that turned up missing in the machine recount that ended yesterday.
Is there any explanation of what happened? Is it just a mathematical issue? That the ballots, when they get recounted, they fall off or they're folded? Have election officials, to your view, given a satisfactory answer?
Well, no, but there are many hypotheses. One, that some ballots were originally damaged in the first counting, that there are things that were ballots that were kicked out the second time around. Apparently, what we really need to be looking at is what happens now. What happens so that this doesn't happen again in 2020?
Well, we heard the same things, remember, back in 2000 with the Chads and the hanging Chads. So why haven't they been able to fix it? And why do voters still re-elect Ms. Snipes? I mean, she was appointed by Florida Governor Jeb Bush, but these are elected officials, and if they're not doing the job, voters have the rights to boot them out.
You know, unfortunately, I think it's one of the unfortunate advantages of incumbency and the inability to really draw a good opponent in that race. But yes, you are right. After the 2000 election, Florida went through to great lengths to rectify the hanging Chads, the pregnant Chads, but what we now see are machines that are aging. 2 scanners overheated in Palm Beach County this week as the recount was going on. What we see are signatures that do not match up. That is not necessarily an indication of fraud, but there is a very cumbersome process, one, to match up signatures, and two, to alert voters that their signatures do not match and that they need to come in. These things need to be much more disciplined, much more stringent, much more heavily regulated between now and 20,000 so that this doesn't happen again.
And finally, what would you suggest? What should officials do? You had a very strong editorial. You're the editorial page editor. You said, we can hear the late night jokes. Florida is in the middle of a vote counting controversy again. Snail-paced vote counting, first focus in Broward and Palm Beach counties, has ripped across the state, giving rise to the idea that maybe a blue wave didn't take place, you just didn't count right, or that Democrats are sore losers. So you've really come out strongly to try and have some ways to reform the system. What do you suggest?
What I suggest is that money be spent to upgrade the optical scanners. This is what we put in place of the paper ballots, hoping that we would avoid this very kind of debacle. We also need a way to ensure that signatures do match up, a better way of making sure of that, a better way of alerting voters that their ballots might be thrown out because there is a signature on their ballots. You know, we need to make sure that if someone is not on social media, does not watch the news, how are they alerted that their vote might not count? We really need to do a deep dive here and get it right.
You know, in this age where we can do almost anything on the smartphone and figure it out, you think that officials in this country could be able to get that done, especially leading up to the 2020 presidential election, because we've had these problems in the past, and sadly they continue. Nancy Ankrum was editorial page editor of the Miami Herald. Thank you for joining us on this.
Thank you very much.
Of course. Arthel?
Eric, thank you. And a legal battle intensifies over a question on the upcoming 2020 census, why some states don't want it.
Plus, President Trump says he's finished answering written questions from Special Counsel Robert Mueller. Where things stand with the Russian investigation and what could come next ahead.
So we actually have a Fox News alert for you. The Democrat in the race for governor in Florida, former Tallahassee Mayor Andrew Gillum, just announcing on his Facebook page that he is conceding in that race there in Florida. In the video, Mr. Gillum congratulates Republican Governor-elect Ron DeSantis. DeSantis getting a big backing from President Trump. The race did go to a machine recount, but in the end, it looks like Mr. Gillum is stepping down and concedes the Florida governor's race there in the Sunshine State.
There should have never been any Mueller investigation because there was never anything done wrong. There was no collusion. There never has been. You would have known about it a long time ago if there was. There was nothing.
Well, President Trump continues to criticize the ongoing Russia investigation, as you know. This says his legal team is expected to submit his written answers to questions asked by the special counsel earlier next week. Meanwhile, Democrats are continuing to slam the president's appointment of Matthew Whitaker as acting attorney general. You know, he's been a vocal critic of the investigation in the past. Ellison Barber has more now from Washington. Hi, Ellison.
Hi, Eric. We reached out to one of the president's personal attorneys this morning to try and ask about those questions. So far, we have not heard back, but the president says the questions will be submitted soon. He also claims he personally answered all of them.
My lawyers aren't working on that. I'm working on that. I write the answers. My lawyers don't write answers. I write answers. I was asked a series of questions. I've answered them very easily. Very easily.
President Trump forced out Attorney General Jeff Sessions and named Matt Whitaker acting Attorney General. Democrats and some Republicans say that Whitaker is a problem in part because he has publicly criticized the special counsel in the past. Some lawmakers say that now really is the time to pass legislation and protect the special counsel.
I think there's nothing lost by doing it, and there's possibly much gained. And it clears the air.
Whitaker has expressed hostility toward this probe. He's suggested ways to diminish it, to starve it of funding, for example. Why in the world we would be so sanguine about this and allow it to happen just is beyond me.
South Carolina Republican Senator Lindsey Graham met with the acting AG a couple of days ago.
I authored the legislation. I think it'd be good for the country in perpetuity to make sure that special counsels have some protection. But as to Mr. Mueller, I see no reason to believe that he's going to be dismissed by President Trump or Mr. Whitaker.
The Senate's top Republican Majority Leader Mitch McConnell has said legislation protecting Mueller is not necessary. Outgoing Arizona Senator Jeff Flake, who you just heard from, a Republican member of the Senate Judiciary Committee, he says that he will not vote to confirm any judicial nominees until legislation protecting Mr. Mueller is taken to the Senate floor. Eric?
All right, Allison, thanks so much. Marthel?
Well, President Trump seeing firsthand the devastation of the wildfires in California. We are live in the southern part of the state with an update on those displaced by the Woolsey fire. Caused by wildfires ripping through the state. 74 deaths now blamed on the destructive fire. Thousands of homes burned to their foundation. Crews searching for more than 1,000 people in Northern California, where the Camp Fire is razing entire communities. Jonathan Hunt is in Southern California, live from Malibu. Jonathan?
Arthel, the president is now, in fact, on his way to Southern California to survey the damage caused by the Woolsey fire. We don't know exactly what area he is going to tour. This fire, of course, burned something like 150 square miles, so there are many areas he could head to. But at all of them, he's going to find scenes like this. And if you can come back to us live here, we'll show you what he will see in any area he goes to here. The utter destruction of so many homes, hundreds of them just burned to the ground here in Southern California on this street, which is a short dead-end street in the Point Dume neighborhood of Malibu. I would estimate around a dozen homes have been destroyed. Now, the president earlier, as you know, was in Northern California around the town of Paradise that is completely destroyed. He was there to thank first responders, to offer what comfort he could to those who are impacted by the fire. He'll be doing similar things down here. But of course, Arthel, there is a real limit to how much comfort you can offer to people who have lost absolutely everything. Arthel?
I mean, and if that's not devastating enough, Jonathan, I mean, the fires aren't the only reason for the president's trip, right?
Yes, Sarah Huckabee Sanders, the White House press secretary, revealed on Fox News on the Hannity show last night, in fact, that the president is also making a point during his visit here to Southern California to meet with some of those impacted by the Borderline Bar and Grill mass shooting. Now, that occurred just about 10 days ago. You'll remember a gunman walking into the Borderline during what is called College Night and gunning down, massacring 12 innocent victims. So the president, according to Sarah Huckabee Sanders,
is going to meet with some of those who were either there at the time and survived the shooting, or perhaps, and also the families of some of those who were murdered on that terrible night. So it is a very long and very emotional day for President Trump as he continues this tour of California. Arthel?
Oh, so emotional for the people going through this firsthand. Yeah. Boy, Jonathan, thank you very much, and want to let everybody know that many schools in the region, they've been forced to close because of bad air quality from the Camp Fire. The Environmental Protection Agency says the air quality in Sacramento is hazardous, and in San Francisco, the air there is very unhealthy.
It sucks for people who are allergic to this stuff, because even me, I'm kind of just like walking out here, I'm like, oh my God, now like my throat is feeling raspy, and I walk here every day. I'm on my work lunch break, and so it's crazy. I can't believe it, and again, it's really sad, and hopefully they'll be able to, really stop it. So we'll see how long it goes.
A monitoring group says the air quality in Northern California was the worst in the world this week.
I have very close to made a decision on UN ambassador or an attorney general. No, we haven't. But I will tell you, until that decision is made, we have a great gentleman in Matt Whitaker. And everybody tells me he's doing a fantastic job.
Well, that's President Trump, of course, on filling the role of the nation's top law enforcement officer 1 week after he asked Attorney General Jeff Sessions to resign. While the president considers who to nominate to replace Sessions, the interim Attorney General, Matthew Whitaker, well, he's facing some legal challenges and criticism, but observers point out that he is acting, which means that a lot of eyes are now turning toward who could replace Sessions permanently, not acting. Franco Ordena has joined us, White House correspondent for McClatchy newspaper. So, Franco, what do you think the president's looking for when he is considering a new attorney general to replace Jeff Sessions?
Well, he's been very clear about what he wants. He wants someone who's going to have his back, who's going to be supportive, who knows the law, who follows the law, but is also not going to allow, in his mind, the Mueller investigation, the Russia probe, to go off the rails and to kind of stop this from a witch hunt. Whitaker seemed to fit that role in many different ways, but as you point out, he's acting, and there is a lot of consideration about others. Who could that be?
Well, when you also talk about having his back, the Attorney General is the lawyer for the American people. He's not the president's personal lawyer. So are you saying the president, wants someone to protect him, or is it to protect the laws of the nation?
Well, certainly, there's no question that that the importance of this position is an attorney for the United States. But President Trump has made clear that he wants someone, as he has said, like Eric Holder was protecting of Barack Obama. He wants someone who also will be looking out for some of those issues that he could be under fire for, that he feels are unfair.
So now the question is who? So let's take a look at some candidates. Let's first start with what I call the inside folks. These are people who are not widely known by the American public. You've got, these have been listed and mentioned as possibilities. Health and Human Services Secretary Alex Azar, Deputy Secretary of State John Sullivan, Transportation Department General Counsel Steve Bradbury. There they are. They're those three. Not widely known by the public, but obviously accomplished people in their own right. Any chance that the president could pick one of these three versus someone much more publicly known?
I think that's that. I mean, I think that's the million-dollar question. I think there's no question that he could pick one of these people. These are people that he knows. A lot of people expect that he will pick someone that he knows and that he has a familiar relationship with, that he feels that he can trust. Another name being talked about a lot now is Pam Bondi. She was the Attorney General in Florida. She is actually going to be meeting with President Trump next week, as we reported at McClatchy. And she is someone who has certainly been tied to President Trump since the beginning of his candidacy. She was a staunch supporter, vociferously campaigned for him, and she also meets some of those same, credibility points that you put out, as well as meets some of the issues that he liked about Jeff Sessions. Strong criminal justice person, strong on immigration. So she is someone to watch out for as well.
Yeah, and here's what she said recently. She's going to have a meeting, and here's Pam Bondi. Here's talking about this right now. Let's take a look.
I'd consider Pam Bondi for anything, but right now I know her very well. In the meantime, she's got a very good job. and she's doing a very good job. She's always done a very good job. But in some form, I'd love to have her in the administration.
Well, that sounds like a pretty good endorsement for Pam Bondi. That was this morning when the president was leaving for California at the White House. And on the list of the public-known people besides Pam Bondi, you also have Chris Kobach, the the Secretary of State of Kansas, who lost his race for governor. Then Chris Christie, of course, and there's Pam Bondi on the right. So, could she be the dark horse and, potentially have the inside track on this?
I think so. I think you might be right there. Certainly, Chris Christie is someone they've been talked about a lot, but he also has a few shadows, I guess you could say, considering his, his history with the Kushner family, having prosecuted Jared Kushner's father, and there's feelings that there's still a lot of bad blood there. Chris Kobach, as you point out, he was someone who was talked about a lot in the past for several positions, including Attorney General, perhaps DHS Secretary. But there's been questions about whether he could be confirmed. He wrote some of the most aggressive immigration laws, and people thought that, maybe some wouldn't like that. But we're actually hearing that President Trump may be kind of cooling on him simply because he did not win his race.
Well, Franco Ordonez will be watching and seeing when the president makes his decision and announces it, and see if it's one of the 6 that we just mentioned. And we'll have you back.
Thanks
so much. Well, President Trump sits down with our Chris Wallace. It's an exclusive interview on Fox News Sunday. Here's a preview.
You need forest management. It has to be. I'm not saying that in a negative way, a positive. I'm just saying the facts. And I've really learned a lot when I went through the states, and especially even in the primaries, where, as you know, we did very well. I went to various places for senators campaigning, great people. And I was given lessons, literally, by governors and by senators on forest management. They don't manage the forests out there. If you had all of that stuff, you have to see it, though. They are raking the things that I'm saying. If that was taken out before, you would have a much different. Also, you need fire stoppers. You have to have fire stoppers. You have to have a spread. Right. We don't do that because of the environmentalists. And you would really, how about the United States? It throws your budgets out of whack. People are dying. When you lose 600, 700, 800 people in this horrible fire that's going on right now, and it can be not only stopped, it can be made much better. At a minimum, it can be made much better. We need forest management. We have to take care of all the dead wood that's so dry. You can take some of these trunks, you can take a match and you can light it on fire. You can't do that with a tree because it sucks up the water. It's wet. So we need forest management.
The president talking about the horrible wildfires. He's out in California at this hour. A lot of other topics in that interview with the president tomorrow on Fox News Sunday. You can check your local listings to see what time it's on your local Fox station, or just keep your TV set right tuned where it is right now, the Fox News channel, because it'll be on tomorrow at 2 and again at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. Promises to be a fascinating interview and session. Arthel?
Well, Eric, a heated legal battle over questions on the 2020 census. The federal government wants to ask about citizenship, but some states are strongly pushing back on that idea. David Lee Miller explains why.
You cannot know your country unless your country knows you.
Mandated by the Constitution.
Politicize the census.
Supporters of the citizenship question say American values are at stake.
It's about ideological warfare.
The lawsuit challenging the census says the citizenship question will scare immigrants from taking part. And as a consequence, certain areas could lose congressional seats and federal money.
The Trump administration is trying to restrict the rights of immigrants, and they're willing to go so far as to undermine the Constitution to get there. That's illegal, and that's why we filed this lawsuit.
An advocacy group that wants the citizenship question asked says the information gathered could be used to protect voting rights and accuses critics of unfairly charging racism.
This is what they do when they're running out of arguments, is they start to say it's all racist. And look, they're afraid that we're going to get a better handle on the problem of illegal immigration, because right now we have a pretty good sense it's occurring, but we don't have exact information. And I think that's what the plaintiffs are afraid of, because it runs against their broader agenda.
The judge is expected to render a decision in the case in about 2 weeks, but no matter what he decides, each side says it's likely this case will go to the U.S. Supreme Court. In New York, David Lee Miller, Fox News.
Well, President Trump giving Nancy Pelosi. Yes, Nancy Pelosi's seal of approval as the Democratic lawmaker seeks to become House Speaker again. We'll explain. Plus, there's a stunning new development in that horrible murder of columnist Jamal Khashoggi.
Once I started
developments in the investigation into the murder of columnist Jamal Khashoggi. According to published reports, the CIA has concluded that Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman did order the killing of the Washington Post columnist. You know, the Saudi government has been claiming the Crown Prince was not involved in this case. Kitty Logan has more from London.
Hi, Eric. Well, there has been much speculation about who ordered the killing of Jamal Khashoggi, but the State Department says there is still no firm conclusion. Jamal Khashoggi was killed after entering the Saudi consulate in Istanbul last month. An earlier report in the Washington Post says the CIA believes the Saudi Crown Prince himself ordered the murder. This is apparently based on intelligence on calls made around the time of the killing. But the State Department says these reports are not accurate. President Trump was briefed on these latest developments as he flew to California. He has previously said he believes the Saudi Crown Prince was not involved. Jamal Khashoggi entered the consulate on October 2nd to collect documents for his upcoming wedding. The Saudi government has admitted he was killed there, saying it happened by accident. They initially denied knowing what had happened to him. The Saudi authorities now blame the killing on a group of 17 men. 5 of those are facing the death penalty. The US government has also imposed sanctions on the alleged killers. Yesterday, symbolic funeral prayers were held for Khashoggi in Saudi Arabia and Turkey. His body has still not been found. He was a fierce critic of the government in Saudi Arabia and lived in the US. The Saudi leadership has, of course, come under intense international pressure over the killing of Jamal Khashoggi, but it insists it did not order the murder. Eric?
Thanks, Katie. Arthel?
Well, Eric, the holidays are upon us, which means food and family gatherings for many of us. But for some military members, it means being separated from loved ones while they serve overseas. One veteran service organization is coming up with a way to share the Christmas spirit with those troops. Carmen Blackwell from Fox affiliate KSAZ in Phoenix picks up the story.
It's a simple gesture that means so much to so many. Christmas cards to military members serving overseas. Members of the American Legion Pat Tillman Post 117 are still trying to reach their goal of collecting about 10,000 cards to send to troops.
Our goal is to make our troops feel appreciated, that we're thinking about them overseas. It's Christmas time. They're lonely. Their families are here. They're over there.
These Christmas cards mean so much to troops. U.S. Army veteran Blake Bryan says the holidays can sometimes lose its special meaning while our troops aren't home for the holidays. Bryan says he still remembers the Christmas cards he received during his time in Iraq.
Everybody's got their lives back home, and it was just really nice to know that they were thinking about us and took the time out of their day to really put something together for us and let us know how they felt, you know, that they supported us and took care of us.
Only having under 2,000 signed Christmas cards, they are still in need of thousands more. In Phoenix, Carmen Blackwell, Fox 10 News.
Okay, Carmen, thank you very much.
That is just so important.
Very important.
The Pat Tillman Post 17 in Phoenix, Arizona. Well, the president is backing Nancy Pelosi's bid for Speaker of the House, but, you know, not all Democrats on board. We'll have more about what's going behind that next. As Speaker of the House, some think that's not completely in jest. That's because earlier today, the president tweeted, "I can get Nancy Pelosi as many votes as she wants in order for her to be Speaker of the House. She deserves this victory. She has earned it, but there are those in her party who are trying to take it away. She will win." Garrett Tenney has more on all this from Washington.
Right now, Nancy Pelosi doesn't have the votes she needs to become Speaker. At least 17 Democrats are openly opposing her, and a couple dozen others are undecided. Pelosi is known as a deal maker, though, and she's been busy meeting with lawmakers this week to try and win them over. Today, she got a big endorsement from none other than President Trump, who said he's willing to get Republicans to vote for her to put her on top.
I would help Nancy Pelosi if she needs some votes. She may need some votes. I will perform a wonderful service for her. I like her. Can you believe it? I like Nancy Pelosi. I mean, she's tough and she's smart.
but she deserves to be Speaker.
That's not necessarily an endorsement Pelosi was looking for, though. And this week, she was adamant that she'll win the speakership with Democratic votes. Congresswoman Marcia Fudge is one of the Democrats considering challenging Pelosi for the top job as Speaker. On Friday, the two met for 45 minutes behind closed doors to discuss what it would take for Fudge to support Pelosi. Afterwards, Fudge said she plans to make a decision over Thanksgiving.
Sometimes you just need a different voice. Sometimes you just need a different kind of a vision. But I want to be clear that I have not said anything negative about Nancy because I think she's a very, very good leader.
Many of Pelosi's critics believe she's been in power for too long and pushed younger lawmakers to the side. So one possibility being discussed to appease those concerns is Pelosi agreeing to limit herself to 2 years as Speaker and then stepping aside to let new leadership take the reins. Eric?
All right, Garrett, thanks so much. See if she does that.
I'm sorry. And we are keeping an eye on Air Force One as President Trump is set to land in Southern California to tour damage from wildfires after making stops up north, the site of the deadliest fire in a century. We have team coverage ahead for you. Stay right here on the Fox News Channel.
Okay, everyone. Our mission is to provide complete